slide, the changing nature of academic instruction. You know, I think the use of online remote tools and a very flexible blended format is going to be with us into the foreseeable future. Along with that, I think looking at the pre-professional opportunities is really understanding what is cooperative education. A lot of times, field placement, internships, co-ops, externships get lumped into this one category, and they can be called different things at different institutions. So one of the things that we've done at Shepherd is, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Jefferson to talk a little bit about what is cooperative education. And Misty, if we can go to the website just to show you our dedicated space and the various kind of guidelines and processes and handbooks we have there. So Joseph, I'm going to turn that over to you next.
Great. Thank you. So as you can clearly see here, we have what we consider to be a definition of cooperative education. And it's basically where the university is trying to build that bridge between the classic classroom theory and then having a student given the opportunity to apply that theory to practice out in the real world. We are trying to assist our students in gaining a better insight as to whether or not their current career path or their current academic major is consistent with their projected career path. We're also trying to allow them to have access to technologies that we might not have at the university. We're trying to help them formulate whether or not where they're at within their academic career is consistent with where they might be at the end. And by allowing them to go out and engage in experiential education, we're hoping to try to solidify that before they get out in the real world and decide that, wow, I've been in school for 4 to 5 or 6 years, and this career goal that I now thought I really, really wanted to have is not really I want to have, and I need to go back to school to retool and to refocus on a different career path. So again, there are multiple goals that we have for cooperative education, and it really depends on the student and where they are at within their academic career.
So Joe, I think also if you could tell us a little bit about some of the challenges, because I think there's also a misconception amongst faculty members that, you know, I don't really need to be involved in what happens with the academic component of cooperative education. And this is where we can really combine the academic expectations with employment experience. And could you talk a little bit about what's on the agreement form, the types of things that you might have there?
Correct. So sometimes what we end up having is we have, obviously, faculty are overworked at times. And so therefore the added commitment to working with a student who's outside of the traditional classroom can be somewhat of a challenge. So what we have, and if you want to track down to where it says forms, we actually have a cooperative education approval form. So that form allows our students to explain to their co-op faculty supervisor what their learning objectives are, meaning what they hope to learn from the work that they are doing. It also states what they will be doing, what task will the student be doing in hopes to reach those learning objectives. There becomes a time in which the faculty supervisor then can assess the relevancy of the student's work, and there's a communications process between the two where they decide how many credits this co-op placement will be able to earn. How many hours will that student have to work in order to reach those credit totals? But more importantly, what are those academic deliverables that the student must turn in or reach in order to, again, get the desired credits that he or she is hoping to earn? So typically it could consist of a log, a journal, a portfolio, a presentation. But again, there's a contract, which is a co-op approval form that must be signed by the student's employer, the faculty supervisor, as well as the department chair within the academic discipline that the student is hoping to earn credits for his or her co-op placement.
Great. Thanks, Joseph. And Misty, if we could go back to the student comments at the end. So again, that this is not just a student receiving credit for employment, but there's a linkage to their academic program. There's a relevancy there. It can often be used by non-traditional or adult students in terms of helping them move towards degree completion. Some of you may have state organized degree completion program for adult learners that can include prior learning assessments, portfolio credit for any kinds of certification or work experience, et cetera. But these can really be used by any student in any academic discipline, not just business. They happen in education, communications, graphic design, et cetera. So let's go forward, Misty, about 3 or 4 slides, please. And you know, again, that 3-pronged approach of the benefits to the student, the institution, the employer. It's like a long-term job interview for the student. Employers have better prepared workforce, but the institution has a student that is going to progress towards degree completion, potentially higher GPAs and higher retention rates. But let's go forward one more to some student feedback. And I think it's the second one. Keep going, keep going. Yes, things change. Yeah, excellent. One more. I think one more slide. Great. So I think these 2 slides really point out the differences here. And I'll take the top one, and Joseph, if you can take the bottom one. You know, this first person was working in a behavior and learning environment and confirmed that they were very passionate about working with young children in terms of access and inclusion. And so that was a confirmation. And Joseph, if you take the second one, we have the opposite.
Well, you can clearly see here something that I said earlier about, you know, having this form of experiential education helping to better direct your career focus. If you're in one academic content area, but then you realize it's not for you, you might want to go to another one. You can clearly see here, this individual basically decided that she did not want to teach. She knew that teaching was not for her. But again, this experience basically helped her confirm that she wanted to change her major and then go into the communications and public relations field by still working in an educational facility. So again, she was potentially doing a co-op at one point in time as it related to education, decided that that wasn't what she wanted to do, but did a co-op at the same institution through the communications department and more or less confirmed her desire to change into communications and public relations. And again, that's just one of those pronged benefits that cooperative education has for many students.
Great. And just to close, we've had so many opportunities for remote work, ranging from art galleries, customer service, NPR, the new hot job, contact tracing, and medical scribe, where we have those opportunities coming up, gaming companies, government agencies, code switching, multimedia, West Virginia National, TESOL. You know, it really has been all over the place. And I see a question: how do we create opportunities to reflect on those experiences? That's a great question. And so that usually is in the agreement with the midterm and final evaluation. There will be a type of reflection paper or log that will go into those midterm and final evaluations, or there may be a final paper where students are closing the loop. Joseph, do you want to address that question?
Well, and I think Scott nails that on the head, but at the same time, there's also the exit survey. So again, midterm is a form that I give to students, and I give them an email alert for that, and then there's a final evaluation. But there's an exit survey that the student also does to, again, go back and reflect on the experience they had with their faculty supervisor, their employer, as well as my office. And then again, these feedbacks that you're seeing here are what the students are actually writing. So again, there are 3 different ways for us to basically have students reflect on their experience. And many of our more seasoned faculty supervisors will again have these students write a paper of some sort or give some presentation that I can attend at the end of the semester.
Great. Are there other questions?
If there are other questions that folks would like to ask live, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay. Well, we want to thank.
I actually have a question. So the student feedback, that was from the previous feedback you had gotten. Have you had any feedback from the folks that have done the remote co-ops?
Yes, I believe so. I think some of the last ones were. Joseph, do you want to address that question from kind of the post-spring COVID semester?
Well, as a matter of fact, these feedbacks that you're seeing right here are actually some of the feedbacks from students who have just completed their co-ops just this past spring term. I think one of the biggest challenges that we had, considering the fact that we left campus, if you will, campus things pretty much shut down right around spring break. The biggest concern that we had for most of our students was, were they going to be able to work the hours needed to earn the credits that they had originally applied for? And so what we basically did at that point in time was work directly with their co-op faculty supervisors, and we were looking for some flexibility considering the current pandemic. And we had absolutely no issues in terms of that, because everybody knew that there were some students who may not be able to actually work. So then what would happen is we had faculty who modified the educational deliverables on the co-op approval form. Because one of the things that we want to make sure that our students as well as our faculty understand, the co-op itself is not based on how many hours that you work, but it's more based on how relevant the work experience is to the academic discipline in which you're wishing to earn those credits. We can have students working fewer hours who have more academic deliverables required of them, or vice versa, depending on what type of work the student is actually doing. So again, we had to have some flexibility once the pandemic hit and students weren't able to work as many hours, but we had no problem whatsoever managing that.
Great. I did get another question, is do you consider co-ops and internships to be the same? And I think those terms are kind of used interchangeably, but in my mind, co-op is more of an actual employment experience where internships may or may not be paid. And that's kind of the differentiation in my mind for that. And I see, I'm getting the signal that it's time to hand off now to my colleague from USC Aiken, Tim Lintner. And so they're going to talk about another type of pre-professional experience in terms of clinical and field placement. So Tim, turn that over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate the introduction and a fantastic synopsis of the power of learning in different environments. And I harken back real quick, Scott and Joseph, to that student who thought he or she was going to be a teacher, went into that environment, scratched her head or his head and said, I don't think that's for me. That's powerful when we provide opportunities for our students to find their niche and clearly, oh my gosh, that picture has to go. So Misty, we'll keep, there we go. So thank you, Scott and Joseph, that was fantastic. My name is Tim Lintner. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, also professor of in the School of Education here. And I want to start off by saying I am so thankful that I work in a small town in a smallish institution. And I say that because we have had to pivot, as I'm sure all of you have had to pivot many, many times. And I think we are still pivoting on what is our future going to be. Working in a smaller institution in a small town provides the opportunities for partnership and the opportunities for us to assure that our students here at USC Aiken are getting the quality education that they deserve, and that our community partners are getting, particularly in this case, the educators that they frankly demand from our institution. Misty, if we can just skip, guys, I just want to skip right to the one that says COVID and field placements. One more, I think. There we go. Yeah, real quick, guys, we have kind of tiered placements for our students here in the School of Education. We have practicum, which is kind of pre-professional embedded in our professionals, and then we have our internship placements. So they're a little bit different, but we do have a mandate by the state of South Carolina that our students must complete 100 hours prior to internship. So when was it? March 11th, I think it was, here in South Carolina. Everything came to a screeching halt. We had students that were smack dab in the middle of their internship. We had students that were right in the middle of their practicums, and everything came to a grinding halt. So the state scrambled, we scrambled, students scrambled, everybody was scrambling, thinking, is this it? And yes, it was it, but I know that we as faculty here thought, well, did our students get enough? Because we are bound to provide the best student that we can, the best educator that we can to our surrounding areas, not necessarily just to Aiken County. We have kind of a consortium of 4 or 5 different counties that our students go out to. And it was a bit disconcerting as faculty, because I'm sure, as some of you guys know, if you're in School of Education or nursing or in business that have kind of tied internships, there were some students that were ready, and they were ready prior to internship. And we had some students that weren't ready, and we were hopeful that their internship would provide them opportunities for extended growth, and they didn't get those. And that troubled us a bit, because there was nothing we could do about it. We could go back and we could kind of try and remediate, but we weren't creating the environment that is most conducive to growing teachers, and that's working with students in the classroom. So everything became topsy-turvy. And what we're trying to do now is we're working diligently with Aiken County, which is obviously the county that we're situated in, is trying to figure out what's next. Where do we go from here? What is 2020 going to look like, particularly in the fall? And we just don't know. Aiken County is, they're in the process of kind of sending out feelers to constituents about possible avenues, and none of them are ideal. And we realize that we at the institution are going to have to be extremely flexible and extremely collaborative and cooperative with Aiken County, assuring them that we are going to work as a unit together. And the interesting thing is that we've always worked well with Aiken County particularly. We've had a relationship with them forever and a day. The majority of us, for those of us here on faculty that have been here for a while, we've taught half of Aiken County. We know the district superintendent. I can text him and he will text me immediately. It's those kind of relationships working in a small town that make things happen. And that's why we're not necessarily so concerned. We are concerned, but we have a partnership in place, and it's a healthy partnership. But our partnership is going to have to change. And that's what we're starting to see now with the advent of COVID, is that things are going to be a little bit different. We've done things so long and well in the past that I think we became somewhat complacent. And complacency sometimes is good because it assures a steady stream. But what COVID did is kind of turned these partnerships, and particularly what field placements are going to look like, absolutely on its head. So I just, prior to this, I had to take a quick conference call, and USC Aiken is partnering with Aiken County to have our interns be part of their remote learning, what are they calling it? Kind of a gathering, so to speak. They don't have any kind of formal term to it yet. But Aiken County reached out to us and said, I know we have some interns coming our way in July, or in August, and we're having a training for all of our faculty on online tips and tools. We would like your interns to participate in that. So it's the district reaching out to the school and us reaching out to our students. And that's promising that they're considering what's best for us, because ultimately what's best for us is going to be what's best for Aiken County, because again, the majority of our students work in Aiken County. I've tried to couch this as best that I can, rather than losing more hair than I've already lost over this, or sleep, or angst and consternation. I'm really trying to place our interns as assets rather than I have a cooperating teacher that needs to be assigned and I have an intern that needs to come. What do I need to do to make your internship successful? That sense of complacency, that sense of how we have done it throughout the years, I think became rather rote. And our interns may not necessarily have been seen as assets. How can they enhance in this age of topsy-turvy COVID? How can they enhance student learning in the classroom? And I've continually tried to couch our interns as benefits, not necessarily another set of hands, but the skill sets that our interns come into internship now, particularly with remote learning, I think are going to be absolutely beneficial. All the training, coming back to a quick story, my wife teaches and she's much more tech savvy than I am, but she struggles a little bit. She has invariably seen in the interns that we have that they are more tech savvy and they get tech. And I think in the age of COVID, we're going to need more tech in how we arrange placements, how we facilitate student learning. And so here's a bit of an asset that I think our interns can provide, is that they can work to the best of their ability to think of different ways to reach all students, because we really don't know what reaching all students is going to look like come August in Aiken County. And so I think that the district is starting to look at our interns differently as well. And that is promising. And again, guys, what I'm really starting to think of is how can we change this dynamic of, COVID has turned everything upside down and we don't quite know where we're going. And that's true, we don't. But there's positives that are going to come from this. And how we at UAC Aiken can structure that sense of kind of positivity and structure and support and scaffold our interns and our practicums and our practicum students as well, by which they provide those skill sets that are going to enhance student learning. And to me, that's exciting. And again, what we really are trying to think of is, what is this going to be? What's it going to look like? And how are we going to make it work? So partnering for the future, it's what's this going to look like? And can we sustain this change over time? Because I guarantee you, our School of Education, particularly how we place students and how we place interns and what we expect from our practicum students and our intern students, is never going to look the same. And that's exciting to me. It's daunting for our students. It's certainly daunting for the teachers, and it's daunting for a lot of our community partners. But I think that this is going to be a positive change, because it's going to provide just a different dynamic and a different sets of skill sets and expectations that I find extremely promising, particularly for our interns, because they're going to have to do things a bit differently. They're going to have to be much, much more flexible, much more attuned to what are the dynamics of the university, the dynamics of their school that they're working in, what are the state requirements combined with all these different moving parts and pieces. And that takes innovation and adaptation, and it particularly takes leadership. So I'm looking at our interns now as not just, and I hate to use the just word, as not just educators in a classroom, but they are going to be change agents, and they're going to have to be innovative and creative and leaders, and leading up from the top and leading from the bottom as well. And that's something that we've taken for granted for so many years here, because we have been doing the same thing the same way. And lastly, I just want to end with this. Our partnership with Aiken County has never been stronger. And that is something that we will have to sustain, and that is going to grow both how we produce and how we provide Aiken County and our surrounding partner counties with the best educators that we can, but also how can we provide services for them, and how can they provide services for us in ever-changing times and ever-changing aspects of where we go from here. And again, that's promising. And I know I might sound like I'm wearing rose-colored glasses, but I am. And And to me, an opportunity has arisen for us at the School of Education at USC-Aiken to be much more creative and much more purposeful in how we think about partners, how we approach our county partners, what we want from them, what they may need from us, and how we work even more concertedly together to assure that we're producing the best quality educator, and that best educator is sitting in a classroom working with our partner schools here in Aiken County and the surrounding environment. So very, very brief, guys. I know there's a couple of chats down here. Misty, I have no idea how to read them. So would you like, and I apologize, guys, I'm not very savvy.
No, you're good. This is our role, so this works out. One of the questions are, can our students, in terms of skill sets, help teachers in remote instructions, like the LMS for the P12 systems, and et cetera?
Yeah. That's all. This is I think what's happening real quick, guys, to kind of is our classroom teachers are saying, I'm not quite sure what remote learning looks like. I'm just not comfortable with it. Our interns may not necessarily have the skill set yet to understand what remote learning really is, but they will deep dive into tech in a heartbeat, and they will figure that technological piece out. Yes, they'll have to learn how to pedagogically make it work within a learning environment, but I'm positive that that first jump, that deep dive into, okay, let's take a look and see how this works, is only going to benefit their cooperating teacher in the classroom.
Okay, great. And then a couple of comments from that was, it will depend on accrediting and state agencies and how they will help us be flexible and creative. And someone else said, I think we can. Truman Ed students provide a virtual summer school enrichment program to our community. We need to make sure that our student interns in Ed are able to communicate newly acquired skill set, as they go job seeking. And then we have Claire said that we had to do that with our nursing students, going back to something previously. Sorry, I missed that. And the teacher education was able to be completed through virtual work. But I do have a question. Do you have any students who are asking to delay their field placements until spring in hopes of more normal experience? We have about 5 minutes to answer.
Yeah, real quick. No, we don't. The meeting that I was talking about before, we are going to ask our interns that are planning on interning in the fall, does anybody want to delay? So we don't know yet, but I would imagine that we are going to have some. And I think it's that sense of uncertainty. And that is because all of us struggle with what our fall is going to look like. It's that sense of uncertainty that I know some of our interns are just worried. Am I going to be placed? What school am I going to be placed in? What's the cooperating teacher? Am I going to have to go to an extended day? Aiken County is looking at a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. They're looking at putting all high schools virtual and then opening up the high schools for elementary students. And there's just so many moving parts and pieces that I think our greatest job right now is to assure our interns that we in the School of Education here have their back, and we will be advocates for them in any concerted way that we can as they move forward. But it's a trying time, though it's an exciting time, and it's a promising time because we at the School of Ed here are changing and we're growing. And that to me is one of the most exciting things that can happen in higher education, is when you see change happen quickly and it happens for all the right reasons. And we're encouraged by those changes.
Absolutely. Daryl Love would like to just make just a general comment, if that's all right.
Of course.
Hey, Tim, first of all, thanks. Great presentation. And as I'm sitting there listening to you, and I wear a couple of different hats with the Career Center at Kentucky State University. I've been there a little bit over a year, but I spent about 30 years in industry with corporate, but I also serve on a local school board. So it's like an intersection of all these different areas. And so I think I heard it on the keynote, and that is around how do we use and take this point of innovation, and especially right now, because everything with NTI and everything that's happening, our teachers, our current teachers, are really up under a lot of pressure in terms of trying to deliver. Then you have your students that we're trying to make sure that we provide the opportunities for them as well. But I believe this is a great opportunity as I'm listening to you, and I'm actually texting our provost here as well as we start to talk, is that, you know, we can now have these generations that are working in concert together to help each other. It's almost the student can become the teacher, and the teacher can still be able to instruct, especially with those individuals, because they understand technology. They're not afraid of it, as you mentioned before. So I think as we start to reimagine what that looks like, because a lot of our colleges, it gives us an opportunity, I think, to really establish ourselves as being such a great strategic partner with some of these particular institutions, unlike ever before. What we were saying, we need you, they're going to come back and say, you know what, you know, we really need you as much as that's the case. So just wanted to share that and just say, I think that's, it's a good opportunity for us to also think about it and reimagine what a good strategic partnership looks like.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. I can't agree with you more. Again, as I mentioned this in the very beginning, the wonderful thing is working at a smaller institution in a small town, because change happens, and it's everybody is talking to each other, and we coordinate what this change looks like, and no one's afraid of change anymore. I think we've all kind of embraced that it's here, it's going to continue, and we jump on the bandwagon and we work at this thing together in a concerted way. Thank you, Daryl. I appreciate that. All right, if there are no other questions, thank you. What I would like to do is introduce our next group of folks. Julie Lockbaum, I'm sorry, Janet Gooch and Nancy Pennington from Truman State University. They have a fantastic presentation. We're continuing this conversation that Scott and Joseph started us off with innovation, creativity, and how do we adapt and change. So ladies, please, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I also want to connect to the thread that I particularly latched on with your presentation, which is the wonderful advantages of being in a small town. And Truman State University is located in a small town, Kirksville, Missouri, in the rural northeast part of our state. We are very much more isolated, though, than maybe Aiken. Definitely more than Scott, your university. We are the largest town within 100 miles of any direction. And so part of what you're going to see with our Greenwood Center project has arisen because of that commitment to place and the particular qualities of this small town place. So our project at Truman is the Greenwood Center project, which is an attempt to marshal lots of partners, including us, Truman State University, to tackle a lack of services in our area for persons who are neurodiverse. And with me on this presentation today are Dr. Janet Gooch, our Executive Vice President and Provost, and Nancy Pennington, one of our crucial community partners. She's Executive Director of Adair County SB 40 Developmental Disabilities Board. She's going to be able to tell you a little bit about that unique Missouri structure. If we could go to slide 3, Misty.
Julie, could I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
Your audio seems to be having just a slight bit of an issue. Would you be willing to just stop showing your video? That should clear up anything, and we can just, you can still navigate from there. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry,
Okay.
you said slide 3.
Is that better? Is this better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Slide 3, please. Crucial partner.
Okay, so here in Missouri, we have a unique system called SB 40 boards. And so what that is a unique board that provides services to people with developmental disabilities. It is named after the enabling legislation, Senate Bill 40, that was started about 50 years ago, enabling counties to enact a local property tax. So those property tax funds that we collect each year are used for providing services for people with developmental disabilities. It could be through purchase of service. It could be through funding providers to help do services, multiple ways. And so here in Kirksville, we can only use that money in Adair County, but we also have a contract with the state to provide targeted case management for people, about 425 people in 5 counties. About 125 of those people are on the autism spectrum. And then when you talk about other neurodevelopmental disorders, that encompasses the majority of the rest of them that are needing services. And as Julie mentioned, we are very remote up here. We have people that we serve from Kirksville that are about 50 to 60 miles away from us. And we are close to 100 miles away from the nearest services for clinical services for autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. What this means is that many times the people are on a wait list, not only for services, but even for the diagnosis that gets them access to those services. The wait list right now at our closest autism center is right about a year to even be, to have a diagnosis of autism. And so that is just really, really intense. As far as the clinical services go, the various therapies, we have great, speech and hearing services through Truman, through their speech and hearing clinic, as well as other providers. But to get these behavior analyst services, applied behavioral analysis that a lot of folks need for autism, even music therapy, we have to go about 100 miles away. And that is just too far, and the wait is too long for people. And there is a critical shortage of practitioners in general, not only here, but I assume that most of you will see that across the country as well. And so Truman has taken this step, and we are really thrilled to partner with them to overcome this barrier, this obstacle for people to receive the services that they need. And we are also thrilled to be able to help students learn more about the field of developmental disabilities and to pursue different career opportunities in that respect that they may be able to use, whether it's here in our community or anywhere in the country or in the world for that matter.
Misty, if you could go to the slide on the dream, please. Thank you. So the Greenwood Center project, Dr. Gooch, would you like to kind of expand on this?
Sure, thanks, Julie. So the dream started several years ago. This has been a project that's been a long time in the making. It started with the Greenwood School, which is a elementary school in Kirksville that is right on the perimeter of the university. And the university bought it several years back, and it is in need of renovation. And so a group of us got together about 2016 and started thinking about how we could repurpose that building and turn it into something of an asset for the community. And so we came up with the vision for the Interprofessional Center for individuals with autism spectrum disorder and other neurodevelopmental disorders. And we started talking this up. We spoke with our legislators, we appealed to the community and started to develop these relationships and community partnerships that would allow this to happen. Early on, we did receive a state appropriation, and that kicked the project off, and we started some early renovations of the building. Then with our partnership with Senate Bill 40, Nancy provided some money to Truman to hire a consultant that helped us think through what kind of pilot project we might be able to start and what the center would ultimately look like. And we started down that road and made a fair bit of progress. Our advancement office here at Truman has also applied for a number of grants, some of which we've been successful in getting, that have also helped us to rehab the building. The vision then is to completely renovate the Greenwood School and to staff it with appropriate professionals to provide clinical services for our families with children and young adults with autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. This would really be fill a community need, and it's really a great project that would ultimately just bring the community and Truman together to help serve the needs of our autism community.
And then we do have an expansion on our dream because it's, you don't want to dream small, so we're going to dream big. We want to expand beyond offering these so necessary clinical services to include inclusive community-based offerings to support employment, independent living, and lifelong learning. Once a person has a diagnosis and receives supportive services, that's great. But then there are other life issues that need supports and help navigating. And so we hope to expand our vision to include supports for employment, independent living, and lifelong learning. Misty, would you go to the action step slide, please? Oh, this, yeah.
That's okay, Julie. I'll kind of summarize here. So this is kind of a timeline of things that have happened so far. So you can see that in 2015, we started down this road, and then we did receive a $5.5 million appropriation. Some of that wound up being withheld, so we never did receive the entire $5.5 million. We only received about 2.5 of that original promise. But we did did a lot of exterior renovations on the building, and those are complete. The building looks very nice from the outside. And that renovation really helped to get some community support. Progress on the building really helped to inspire the community. The community wanted to get involved when they saw the product that was the new Greenwood School. And then if you go to the next step, or the next slide. So some pictures there of some community events, which gained a lot of support. If you keep going. And then here is some of our action steps with some of our community partners. So you already heard from Nancy. She did a great job telling you about the association with the Senate Bill 40 Developmental Disability Board. They've probably been our most continuous partner and really have helped get the project kicked off. They also helped us launch an RBT certificate here at Truman. So we developed an online registered behavior technician certificate for students and other individuals in the community, which has been wonderful. And then we've partnered with Northeast Missouri Health Council and Preferred Family, 2 different organizations in Kirksville, and they've been our partners primarily in trying to get the pilot project off the ground. And then we also collaborated with ATSU, which is a osteopathic medical college here in Kirksville, Missouri, and they helped us to develop and design an online master's in mental health and school counseling program. We felt that by providing more mental health counselors in the area, we would be able to staff the clinic and provide more professionals in this much needed area in our community. And then we have done some community campaigning. Definitely that's a project of our advancement office. They've started a community campaign. We did a video to promote the renovation and partnerships of the Greenwood School, and we have applied for external grants, as I previously mentioned. Julie, you want to take us to the what we've learned so far slide?
Yep, what we've learned. Well, we've learned that projects of this magnitude take time and persistence. And you can see it's a multi-year project and we still have multi-years left to do. So scaling your time expectations is really important for a big project. Setbacks are temporary. There are many setbacks. And we've had another setback with COVID because the pilot project was not able to get off the ground as scheduled. So there are setbacks. You have to expect those. But you also have to have the mindset that setbacks are temporary. And the way we make them temporary instead of stops is that we work collaboratively to move forward with partners such as the SB 40 Developmental Disability Board. And you have to involve as many community partners as you can. I don't think any of us had an accurate idea of how many we would mean by many. And it just continues to grow exponentially. You have to have lots of community partners. That means the coordination effort grows and grows and grows, but that's how you get resilience to overcome your setbacks. And then one thing that I think is important for COPLAC universities is to understand that undergraduate students really can be assets in forwarding a project like this, a really big project. We have a disability studies minor that is very robust, that is a cultural study of disability. So those students are involved in this. We have major programs that exist already that are involved in this. We have some new programs coming online in December that will be involved in this. But undergraduate students really can play a role and can be your cheerleaders as well as forward the project in tangible ways. So for us at COPLAC, we want to remember that undergraduate students are an asset in pursuing a project of this magnitude. I saw a question from Scott about, is there any idea of helping high school students on the autism spectrum transition to college? And that's partly why we envision this center as being more than an interprofessional clinic, because we do understand that there are these supportive services in addition to clinical diagnosis and treatment that are necessary. At this point, we're still just breathing a sigh of relief that the building is stable. And so educational transition programming has not been something that we're working with yet. But those of us in the education department, and I'm a professor of education here, we have very close ties with our transition specialists in the districts that we have memoranda of understanding with. And so I would expect that that would be one of those supportive directions we would go once we have the center up and running. Are there other questions?
Excuse me. Did you answer both Tim and Scott's question? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I did not see Tim's.
Okay, so Tim asked, will there be an opportunity for your School of Ed students to gain experience at the Greenwood School?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. Not just our School of Ed students, but also, as I mentioned, our disability studies students, our communication disorder students. Janet, how many programs do we have that will be intersecting with this center? Goodness.
Oh yeah, quite a few. We envision our psychology program, our music program. We are looking into starting a music therapy program. So there would be opportunities all across campus, not to mention in the co-curricular, we have a number of student groups who have service hours that they would love to do in this area and in the context of the center, providing respite care for parents and things like that. So there's so much opportunity for our students to be involved and to give back to the community, whether in a learning environment or a service environment.
We also have some student organizations that are advocate organizations. So they are looking at this center as well. One student organization that comes to mind is our Neurodiverse Student Network advocacy organization.
Are there any other folks who have questions? If you'd like to unmute yourself at this point. We have about 5 minutes left. Okay.
Did you have any problems in terms of, we live in a very old town as well. Washington did sleep here. So and I know that in terms of preservation and all of the guidelines there, did you encounter a lot of obstacles in terms of kind of retrofitting your building for a different purpose?
Well, we did hire an architectural firm to help us work through that process early on in the project. We did explore actually also the use of tax credits if we were to try to preserve the building as it historically was built, but that just didn't really seem like a feasible option. And so the architects really re-envisioned the building. We will have to put an elevator into it. So you're right, there are challenges with the space because it was built such a long time ago. And it probably will cost more than if we were to build a building new. But it's such a landmark in our city and at the corner of our university that it was really worth the time and effort to try to preserve.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Over 60 years of Kirksvillians went to school there. And over 60 years of student teachers did their student teaching there. And it's named after very well remembered and revered faculty at the normal school, which is now Truman. So I would have hated to have been the executive vice president and provost who demolished that building.
Julie and team, we have a couple of comments. One is fantastic master's degree, linking school counseling and mental health, brilliant. Scott says elevator, big bucks, great presentation from Melinda Treadwell. And Tim says that kind of local history does matter.
Mm-hmm.